Another step flown in the right direction, made by SpaceX. Coming up. Crew-2's flight last Friday on April 23rd went without any major hiccups, no delays, pushbacks, etc. In fact, Crew-2 were so quick on their feet that they had ingress to Falcon 9's crew module, Dragon Endeavour, about 20 minutes early. At T-minus 4 hours, we start to see views of Crew-2 in the historical suit-up room. Fun fact, this room used to be the same room the Apollo astronauts used for the moon missions back in the 1960s. And at T-minus 3 hours and 59 minutes, we see spacecraft commander Shane Kimbrough, a NASA astronaut on his third spaceflight, get into a mock-up Crew Dragon seat. The rest of his crew follows suit. After suiting up, we get a brief overview of the crew members' background before it is time to receive a little pep talk from Elon and NASA Administrator Steve Jurczyk. T-minus 3 hours and 20 minutes before flight, we get to see the historic walkout shot from our Crew-2 astronauts. As the crew walks out towards their Tesla Model X's, they get a chance to say goodbye to their friends and families in preparation for their 6-month journey. At T-minus 3 hours and 14 minutes, the Teslas with the crew inside of them begin the 15-minute drive to Launch Pad 39A, where their Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon Endeavour is waiting for them. The astronauts get to the pad 2 minutes early and begin to take their bio break, which is basically smart person talk for bathroom break. And finally, at T-minus 2 hours and 45 minutes, we have our first astronaut start their ingress procedures. And by T-minus 2 hours and 38 minutes, all 4 Crew-2 members are seated and are going through their ingress operations. At T-minus 2 hours and 9 minutes, we have our final FOD check, which is a foreign object debris check to make sure nothing out of the ordinary enters the vehicle, and we start to see the closeout team close the hatch door, literally and metaphorically sealing their fate until they reach the International Space Station. At T-minus 44 minutes and 16 seconds, we hear,
"Hull is complete and team is ready for propellant load and crew access arm retract. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD and they'll approve aborting the launch auto sequence and proceed into launch abort. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the countdown, operator shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into the launch abort auto sequence. Operators advise launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual escape flight rules. In the event of a fire alarm, key operators will man their post while the alarm is evaluated. In the event that personal safety is threatened, evacuate to the south-facing emergency exit, which leads directly outside. Launch control, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement."
Which means the LES system, or otherwise known as the launch escape system, is being armed as LOX and propellant starts to be loaded into the rocket. Next we hear,
"Crew access arm retraction started."
Which means the hallway the crew has walked on to get to Dragon is now separating from Endeavour, coincidentally giving the rocket enough space for launch. And at T-minus 39 minutes and 7 seconds, we hear that the LES system is armed. So a bit on the LES, or launch escape system. The launch escape system is a feature engraved into Crew Dragon sights, where in case of a catastrophic failure where the health of the rocket and crew members are at risk, Dragon would fire up all 8 of its Draco engines at 100% throttle to quickly, securely, and effectively separate the crew capsule from the rocket in less than half a second. We've seen other versions of this feature, for example on the Apollo moon missions where they had LET, which was a launch escape tower. But now you may ask, but the space shuttle didn't have LES or an LET. Why not? Well, from a designer standpoint, the space shuttle's design was very unpractical to have any sort of LES, because of its shape and the way it flies into orbit. The space shuttle engineers didn't lose all hope. They did try to jerry-rig a last-minute LES onto the space shuttle on STS-26. On missions from STS-26 and beyond, the engineers made modifications to the seats where they would allow the astronauts to wear a parachute during ascent. The idea was that if there was some catastrophic event that occurred where the space shuttle or the crew's health were at risk, they would put the space shuttle into an autopilot controlled glide after the side boosters had burned up all their fuel. And then they would do some fancy maneuvers to get rid of the external bright orange tank. Assuming you did everything correctly, you would simply jump out of the shuttle. Let's say some 40,000 plus feet, going extremely fast skywards. If I had to give an estimate on miles per hour, I would say that they would probably be bailing out of the shuttle at around 2,500 miles per hour. And once you jump out of this aircraft, you parachute down somewhere over the sea or ground. Easy, right? No, not at all. An example of this design failing would have been the unfortunate disaster of the Challenger space shuttle on January 28, 1986. The Challenger shuttle broke apart during ascent just 73 seconds into flight. The cause for this disaster was a failed joint in the shuttle's right SRB, or solid rocket booster, which was caused by the vehicle's O-ring seals used in the joint not being properly accustomed to the freezing temperatures experienced in space, or in the upper parts of the atmosphere. The O-ring failure caused a breach in the right SRB, allowing pressurized burning gas to leak into the outside conditions. This caused the right SRB to separate completely from the shuttle, which disrupted the aerodynamics of the vehicle, thus causing enough aerodynamic pressure forces to break the shuttle apart, causing an explosion. The Challenger crew simply didn't have enough time to analyze the anomaly, and even if they did have time to discover the anomaly, the unpractical option of bailing out the side of the shuttle would have never worked because your SRBs need to be burned out completely. The Challenger crew couldn't have done anything to save themselves or the shuttle. Therefore, on January 28, 1986, 7 astronauts died for the promise of exploration deep into the unknown. This is why it is crucial for every vehicle to have an LES system or some guarantee of safety in case of the worst happening. Going back to the Crew-2 launch, finally, at T-minus 9 minutes and 55 seconds, we hear that we are entering the final stages of preparation before Falcon 9 lifts off. We hear,
Dragon, SpaceX, confirmed crew displays are configured for launch.
Which asks the crew if their displays are ready for launch, or if they are in the right modes ready for liftoff. Crew Commander Shane Kimbrough answers,
Displays are configured for launch,
confirming the display configuration. Then we hear some kind words going around just minutes before launch.
SpaceX copies. Shane, Megan, Aki, Tama. We're thrilled to have the crew on board Endeavour once again, and truly honored to have you all at the helm. It's been a pleasure training alongside you ahead of this historic launch. We wish you a great mission, good luck, and enjoy the ride.
Thank you, Chad, Christian, Frank, and all the teams who got our crew and vehicle ready for this mission. We want to say a special thank you to our families and friends. We're incredibly grateful for your support and sacrifice during our training and our upcoming flight. Our crew is flying astronauts from NASA, ESA, and JAXA, which hasn't happened in over 20 years. We're excited to represent our nations, agencies, and all of humanity. Off the Earth, for the Earth, Endeavour is ready to go.
Then out of nowhere, we start to see venting from the upper parts of Falcon 9, confirming that propellant loading is now almost complete. T-minus 6 minutes and 54 seconds, we see that Falcon 9 is nice and frosty as we hear,
Stage 1 engine chill has started.
which is a procedure done before launch that allows the engines to be cooled to the same temperature as the LOX or liquid oxygen Falcon 9 uses for fuel. This reduces shock to the engines during ignition. At T-minus 6 minutes and 40 seconds, we get confirmation that RP1 or kerosene is finished loading onto stage 2. And 6 minutes and 5 seconds, we also get confirmation that the stage 1 is done loading RP1.
Our load is complete.
Down to the last few minutes, we hear Dragon is on internal power.
Dragon has transitioned to configure for terminal count,
which is a really good sign that the rocket is very healthy for launch. At T-minus 4 minutes and 25 seconds, we hear
Strong back is retracting,
allowing Falcon 9 and Crew-2 enough clearance to leave the pad, and just 2 minutes and 37 seconds until liftoff, stage 1 LOX or liquid oxygen load completes, completely topping off Falcon 9 with fuel, which now means that Falcon 9 is in control of the countdown and on terminal count. And just T-minus 43 seconds before launch, we hear
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
Which Shane Kimbrough, speaking for all of Crew-2, replies,
Copy, go for launch.
And oh boy, when we hear those magical words being spoken out, we know this is happening.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Mission.
Immediately, all 9 of Falcon 9's Merlin engines roar and fire to life as they shoot Crew-2 with 1.7 million pounds of thrust to their destination, the International Space Station. From here on, the mission is basically the same as a Starlink or Cargo Dragon mission. T plus 44 seconds, Falcon 9 begins to throttle down in preparations for Max Q, which is the point in the flight where the vehicle will experience the most aerodynamic pressures. Once past it, Falcon 9 will throttle its engines back up to speed. At T plus 1 minute and 3 seconds, we hear the call out that Falcon 9 along with Crew-2 are at Mach 1 speeds. The next milestone is shutoff of the 9 Merlin engines on stage 1 in order to have stage sep, which is stage separation. We have MECO or main engine cutoff, and a few seconds later we have the stage separation confirmed.
Copy, 2 Alpha.
And a second after we have SECO, or second engine start, propelling the crew even further into space. Stage 1 will now coast until apogee, where it will start falling back down to Earth, where it will have a controlled landing on a drone ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. While Stage 2 is propelling the crew into a stable orbit to rendezvous with the ISS. Stage 1 starts its re-entry burn at T plus 7 minutes and 33 seconds, effectively slowing Stage 1 from quote-unquote, way above the speed of sound to just under the speed of sound. This burn lasts for a total of 29 seconds and 29 seconds only, and it serves to disperse the aerodynamic pressures all over Falcon 9. Our entry burn is complete just under 35 kilometers, and now it's just a waiting game for that landing burn. As we see our Stage 1 streak across the clouds, we hear
Invac shutdown.
Which means we have fully shut down our second stage engines and have stopped Crew-2 from getting into a higher orbit than the International Space Station. T plus 9 minutes and 4 seconds we have our landing burn start up right as we hear
Dragon, SpaceX, launch escape system disarmed.
Which we then hear confirmation from the crew on board Dragon.
Launch escape system disarmed, copy.
We also hear that Dragon is in a nominal orbit, or otherwise known as a good orbit.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
And right on its mark, at T plus 9 minutes and 35 seconds, we see our Stage 1 standing majestically on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You.
We're waiting to get a video signal back from the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You.
Our next milestone is to hear Stage 2 SEP, or separation from Crew Dragon. And right on time, we see stage separation at T plus 12 minutes and 8 seconds, sending Crew-2 flying on their 30-hour journey to meet up with the International Space Station. Crew-2 will be in a coast phase for about 30 hours until they approach and then dock to the International Space Station. They do just that the next day, and we have successful docking and crew egress from the Dragon Endeavour and successful crew ingress to the ISS. Now, you might be asking, what about Starliner? So let's talk about it. Why Boeing's Starliner never made it to carrying crew to the International Space Station? Before SpaceX started flying crewed missions to the International Space Station, their main competitor was Boeing, who was and still is developing their own capsule to deliver NASA astronauts to the International Space Station. There are certain certifications a capsule needs to pass in order to start crewed flights. For example, you need an uncrewed mission to the International Space Station to be successful. Then you need to have successful pad abort tests of that capsule, as well as an in-flight abort test, to prove the spacecraft's robustness and reliability in the safety of the crew. When Boeing launched their Starliner into orbit to meet up with the International Space Station, something went wrong where they were incapable to dock with it. Therefore, Starliner failed the test and were forced to deorbit the capsule and to try again at a later date. Next, we saw a pad abort test, which was partly successful in the sense that it did perform a maneuver to get Starliner away from the rocket in time, but then had an issue with its parachutes that made it fail that certification. And because all of these setbacks, Boeing's Starliner has not yet done their in-flight abort test yet. So SpaceX came in and took the lead and beat Boeing in the crewed space race. But Boeing is still aiming for a second attempt to dock with the International Space Station and an in-flight abort test. Again, like always, rockets will always have their faults and their downfalls, but it's always great to see improvement in this type of science. So how was that for information overload? What do you guys think? Will Boeing make history with that comeback? Or will SpaceX lead the crewed flight industry? Tell me in the comment section, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.
Go in the sun.